Thank you for joining us again on a Wednesday evening. I am Dan Wilson, your candidate for Kootenai County Sheriff. Thanks for joining all the way down to the south of us in the great state of Idaho, into eastern Washington, western Montana, wherever else you may be listening and watching. Thank you so much for joining. Please drop your questions throughout the night. I want to be able to answer anything that you may throw at me, questions, concerns. Send them my way. And of course, I have my wife and producer, Donna, that's going to be helping me out tonight, as she always does. She makes me look good, keeps me organized.
Give it a try. Most importantly, we thank you for those of you listening from Kootenai County, because we are loving, appreciating, and so much need your support, are grateful for you. Yeah. We feel that. We see the lawn signs and from your homes and businesses. We have those available to you if you haven't had a chance to get those yet. And we need financial support. That's something both of us have a hard time just diving into that part of it and asking for money. Dan's made mention he's a business guy, and he's used to paying people to do what they do. So it's really weird having to ask for support in a situation like this. But on the other hand, the upside of that is that when you're able to do that, it is a demonstration to us that you believe in the cause of liberty without compromise, and that you're joining together shoulder to shoulder with us for Dan Wilson for Kootenai County Sheriff 2024. Another fun thing is when you do that, minimum donation of $25 on up. We've got these super deluxe magnetic bumper stickers. I have one of these on the back of my 4Runner. It looks outstanding.
It does.
The visibility is amazing, and it's an excellent message that we want you to be a part of and share with the community. So when you donate online, easy to do. It's a secure setup on the website at theidahosheriff.com. One of these will be yours. Those are for local donations. We will have a pickup point for the bumper sticker magnets, and you will be able to make that your own and help further the message, not only with that financial support, but then also with that liberty without compromise message.
And I didn't say thank you for joining us from Kootenai County, which you guys are the most important watchers, observers, participators, that I need your support right now. But thanks again for watching. We are going to talk about a whole myriad of topics tonight. We're going to talk once again about the FBI and their continual overreach and how that may impact Kootenai County. We're also going to talk about Bob's Crooked Copter and stuff that's going on Kootenai County tribal lands that aren't good. We're going to try to burn through a lot of our pre-agenda topics, but I would love to be interrupted by your questions. So this is your chance.
There is one right off the top, and I don't think you need to answer it now, but just Amy is wanting to know on Instagram if you're going to be talking about the water situation, and I think that's probably related to.
Yeah, we're going to talk maybe a little bit about that. It's a very hot topic right now. It's hard to find out what the truth is from fiction, but we are monitoring that. I can assure you, and I've been talking with people in the know, not just social media and people that are posting online, but state legislators that are closely monitoring this with the governor's office. So go to theidahosheriff.com. You can look up anything that we have to offer, whether we're talking about something here tonight. Chances are you're going to find that backup documentation, the receipts on theidahosheriff.com. You can also go to our merch page and buy one of those awesome shirts, Liberty Without Compromise. Wow.
Those shirts have gotten compliments out on the street just simply for the message. That's heartwarming for me to know. Yeah. It's something that we've been able to share with the community.
It's a message. It's a message that transcends even American government. It was, basically the basis of what this country was founded upon. And it goes back all the way to the teachings of John Locke, who the founders quoted more often than any other source when they drew up the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. So life, liberty, and property, the laws of nature, and nature is God. And it is so important for us as Americans to reestablish our heritage, which was paid for by a great price by those that went before us. And we are on the cusp of losing it. We have lost sight. We've become lazy, lethargic. But I believe that it starts at the county, and it is my belief and my goal that when I become the next sheriff of Kootenai County, that I'm going to be in overdrive, getting this county ready to protect everybody in this county, everybody's rights to life, liberty, and property. And then once we get Kootenai County squared away, we can start going towards the state level. And then maybe eventually, I don't think in my lifetime, we can look and focus on the federal government. But everything starts right here, ground zero. It's important that you have a constitutional sheriff who stands in the gap between you and an unaccountable, out of control federal and state government. Now, the sheriff operates under the executive branch inside state government. So I'm an extension sort of kind of the governor, but locally here in the county, chief law enforcement officer is what the sheriff is. And there's only 3 things that are required in the state of Idaho to run as a sheriff that represents the people, elected by the people. That is, you have to be 21 years of age. 21 years of age.
Say it in an accent.
Cut. 21 years of age, you have to be a citizen of the United States, and you actually have to live in the county that you are running for the position. So look, folks, we have forgotten exactly how important the office of the sheriff is, and it definitely does not have to be a career law enforcement professional sitting in that seat. The person that does represent the people needs to truly understand the Constitution and the founders, going all the way back to the Mayflower and the Mayflower Compact, and how Americans came to this great country looking for liberty, how we finally obtained it. You know, I'm so proud to be endorsed by Sheriff Richard Mack of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. He came to Kootenai County to give a lecture back in April. It was open to the public and to elected officials. And I had the distinct pleasure of being endorsed by Sheriff Mack as the constitutional sheriff candidate. And unfortunately, Bob Norris did not make that same cut. So Sheriff Mack does not believe that Sheriff Norris is a constitutional sheriff, although he throws a lot of buzzwords around, like, you know, pro Second Amendment. In fact, I was getting a laugh out of this. This was a mailer that Bob put out right before the primary election. And of course, all of a sudden, one of his priorities.
Go ahead and hold that up again. Yeah.
And I don't have this in digital format. I probably should have scanned it, but this was prior to the May 21 primary. And his top 3 priorities, surprisingly, after we came out and went to the border, all of a sudden, Bob is concerned about the border. But we talked about the Second Amendment a second ago. And here's what he says under his bullet point number 2, Second Amendment protection. Now listen to the way politicians run their mouths and read it for what it is. Sheriff Norris is an avid fisherman and a sportsman. That's why local outdoorsmen and women stand with Sheriff Norris. He defends our Second Amendment rights. Well, I hate to break it to the sheriff, and it's probably because of his lack of knowledge on the importance and exactly what the Constitution, more specifically the Bill of Rights, is. But Bob, don't confuse the Second Amendment with hunting and being in the outdoors. Now, it's great to be able to hunt with a firearm. It's great to be able to be out in the woods to protect oneself from, I don't know, a bear, a wolf, a grizzly, a rabid rabbit. I don't know. It's great to have a firearm with you, but the firearms that we're talking about, the right to keep and bear arms, which shall not be infringed, has nothing to do about hunting and has everything to do about keeping an out of control government at bay. And we're seeing a lot of tyranny right now. And thank God that our founders gave us the Second Amendment, because I think the globalists, the neo-Marxists would have attempted to take us over way sooner. And now they're having to be pretty crafty in this 5th generation warfare that we're experiencing. So yeah, don't let politicians hoodwink you anytime they start running buzzwords around. Look, the Second Amendment is every bit as important as the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment and so on and so forth. None of the 10 Bill of Rights are more important or less important than any other. So I just encourage you, when you're looking for a constitutional sheriff, one who will stand in the gap between, again, you and an out of control government, even local tyranny, that sheriff really has to understand what the intent of the founders were and the significance of those documents. Look, a constitution is great. Our Constitution is actually pretty brief, but there's a lot in it. But it's only a parchment barrier, because if good, righteous men, moral men, don't uphold the words on the Constitution and in the Bill of Rights, it's nothing. It's just paper. So
I wanted Dan to hand that back to me to read the second point on this card. When did this mailer come out?
right before the May 21 primary.
Before the primary.
Mhm.
I hadn't seen this one, but it's an interesting position to talk about. This is where you're going with it, the Second Amendment protection, but then relating Norris's stance because he's an avid fisherman and sportsman.
Mhm.
So we're not really referencing the ability to protect yourself, your home,
Yeah.
your household.
Life, liberty,
but,
property.
like, guns because we're hunting.
Look, this is a safe thing to send out to people who maybe aren't as conservative and don't believe. This is pandering. Look, Dan Wilson's never going to pander to anybody. I've said it before. My worldview is vastly different from many on the left. However, the role of the sheriff is one of impartiality, equal protection under the law, no special protection for anybody, no less protection for anybody. So yeah, you're never going to see Dan Wilson put out a pandering piece of propaganda.
You just had a question come in on Facebook, serious question. She says, will you treat every single person with respect and dignity? That's very important to her.
I absolutely will. And there's many reasons why, but it comes down to this. Again, fidelity to the Constitution, to the Bill of Rights. Number two, and that's equal protection under the law, due process. Number two, the golden rule, treat others better than you want to be treated, or treat others the way you would want to be treated. And lastly, I come from I should say I'm a father of 5, and one of my children is actually special needs and I can't even talk tonight.
It's okay.
Developmentally disabled. I have a special place in my heart for people that are considered to be the lessers in society. So no, my response to you is the sheriff's office under the watch of Sheriff Dan Wilson will be one of respect for everyone in the county, regardless of what your belief or ideology is. And you know what? I've been saying this since day one. This has never changed, unlike my competition, my competitor that says whatever to whatever group he happens to be in. And we hear this all the time. He says one thing at one group and one thing at another. My message will never stay anything more than consistent.
That has been the word on the street, that if he's in a Coeur d'Alene proper type of event where people don't hold as many of the conservative values, you have a lot of money coming from out of that area, the messaging that Norris has will change to that particular group of people.
Yeah.
And then if he's out in Spirit Lake or Wolf Lodge and expecting you have longer time residents, people not necessarily as financially astute with more conservative values, then the message sways and swings and changes a little bit.
Now, I love to talk about all things liberty and what my ideas are for this county, a lot of my background. I don't have as much time on the weekly town halls to do this. So we have town halls throughout all of Kootenai County. We have one coming up this Saturday, 10 a.m. in Athol, Idaho. That's the northeast section of the county. And it's going to be at the Athol Community Center. Now, the community center looks like a big old grange. The council chambers are below. Upstairs is where we're going to be holding this event. 10 a.m. Come listen to my message, ask me questions. A great time for those who maybe are hesitant or are under the false impression that Dan Wilson is a grifter, a rhino, a poser, whatever you have heard negatively, bring them out. I have yet to hear one person who met me in person who did not believe that I was qualified, that has ever walked away and said, you know what, that guy's still unqualified.
That's why it's a good challenge to those who've been very vocal on social platforms and some of the private messaging groups to come on out to a live event, show your face. Let's hear your voice, have that back and forth conversation. If you're still taking the time to have the discussion and have opinions about Dan Wilson in those groups, and then you say, well, my vote's decided, and I don't need to come out to a live event because I know what I know. well, then why are we still talking about
And
it?
I challenge conservatives in this community. If you are a Republican, now, of course, I was a lifelong Republican and switched to independent for this race. Remember that the founders never intended for us to have kings. America does not have kings. Now, many bureaucrats attempt to usurp that back from the people and be our kings, our betters. But even Bob Norris does not have a reason not to be challenged. Just because people may like him, and in 4 years, I fully expect to be challenged myself. That is the way we do things here in America. We get to continually challenge our representatives because that's what we all are, representatives. We are no better than you, but we get to challenge our representatives. And if another individual that wants to take the calling on, has a better message and connects better with the people, then you know what? The people have every right to select that person to be their new representative.
And in every type of situation in life, competition makes the end result, makes the outcome better.
And we know this because, personally, I've been in business for 25 years. And let me tell you, we do not do business now the same way that we did in 2000. It's a vastly changing, many similar things, but how we roll the business out. And that's the same thing in law enforcement. The sheriff's office has had too much law professionals running that office for far too long. And I think that there has been a loss of vision and reality that those of us who have not spent a lifetime in law enforcement bring to the table. Now, I spent 12 years as a reserve officer and gave to my community for 12 years, close to $250,000 worth of service back to those communities. And I had full authority when I was working, but I took on all that risk and liability and did the job because I love serving the people in the communities. I love law enforcement. I love justice. I love the challenges of being a patrolman. And I do understand what it's like to give back to my community. So for all those detractors who want to say that Dan Wilson is not qualified to sit in the position of sheriff, look, I paid my dues for 12 years and I worked a full-time job and ran my companies while I still suited up several times a month, several times a week at times, and performed law enforcement duties. So thanks for that question. We are looking forward to seeing everybody again Saturday, the 22nd, 10 a.m. up in Athol. Come join us.
And if you want to come a little bit early, or you should leave a little bit early to get your coffee, swing through Coffee Corral. I'm telling you, if you're holding up the line, if you're in there ordering burritos or whatnot, holding up the line for me getting my coffee, there's going to be a problem.
We talked we've been continually talking about this, but several events ago on Wednesdays, we talked about the tribe and the helicopter. And as you may recall, quick little summary, we have this volunteer helicopter nonprofit that has been offered to the county. Bob Norris, along with Lieutenant Mark Ellis, got this program before the Board of County Commissioners. It was approved. All donations to buy this helicopter. One of those donations was a $200,000 donation by the Kootenai tribe. Now, shortly thereafter, the tribe, through their tribal council, their attorneys, requested from the sheriff's office, and we have those emails on the idahosheriff.com, requested to take over primary law enforcement on all tribal lands to include tribal and non-tribal members. Now, if you happen to be living anywhere on tribal land in Kootenai County and are a non-tribal member, you are paying taxes, property taxes, to receive sheriff services. And it was reported to us that in 2023, first quarter, February, March, that the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office cross-deputized, they cross-deputized them earlier in 2022, but in 2023, they started allowing the Coeur d'Alene tribe to take over as primary law enforcement on tribal lands. We've been hearing this from multiple sources, to include Sheriff Eels out of Benoit County. But recently, I had a constituent call me up, and they were very upset. This individual lives as a non-tribal member on tribal land, and their neighbor was experiencing a burglary. The suspect was there. He had broken into this residence. He actually had a order of protection against him, and he was there violating that order at that residence. He was there breaking into things, and just trying to summarize it. When the neighbors figured out what was going on and they called 911, the dispatcher advised them that there was no Kootenai County deputies anywhere around, and it would be a very, very long time for a deputy to actually show up. So their best option would be tribal police. And not knowing any better, that's exactly what they allowed. They allowed a tribal police officer to come to this call. And later on, debriefing, they were very, very upset at the lack of service that they received. The officers were nice, but there was a overall lack of any kind of follow-up or service by Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. Word is spreading throughout the tribe of what has been going on, and people are not happy about this. And this comes back down to a pay-to-play scheme that Bob Norris has been involved with steadily, and he learned about it from the corrupt Baca Tanaka days of Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. So if you have experienced any similar situation where, as a non-tribal member, you contacted the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office for service and did not receive a deputy, would you drop me a line and let me know about your experience? You can send your comments to info@theidahosheriff.com. I'd love to read what you have to say and then have a follow-up conversation. In Kootenai County, you are afforded the right as a citizen to have services. In fact, a constitutional sheriff would never abdicate his responsibility in any part of the county. Sheriff should be there protecting all of his people. So something for you guys to think about and to, report what you know about it. Let us know. We're working on many different angles, and we are going to be having an update for you guys shortly as to what's really going on down there in tribal lands.
Well, you're thinking about the next segment, another question from Facebook. If a citizen needs to talk face-to-face with the sheriff, will you make the time and not send in the undersheriff? Now, I'm curious on this answer, because how much is unbridled access, personal access to the sheriff really feasible when you have a big job to do?
I think there's, reasonableness to everything. The current sheriff is constantly out and about. I don't know how he actually gets anything done at the office. He's at every event that there's possibly available under the sun in Kootenai County and then some. So I do think, though, that town halls and events are good for the sheriff because you are representing the people. However, if it gets more into a policy or the inner workings, that's when it would be appropriate for an undersheriff or captains or lieutenants or whatever to come and address your situation. But if you're not getting good answers and you're having a problem, then by all means, the sheriff would be the person that you should contact to voice, because the sheriff is representing the people. Now, I recently was contacted, in fact, just 2 nights ago, by a citizen who has not been getting any response from the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office despite repeated calls. And the individual just keeps getting blown off, and they're pretty upset. So,
what does that type of access look like? Is it, if a citizen has a concern, that they should make it a priority to show up to a public town hall? Is it physically coming into the sheriff's office Monday 9 to 5? Do you call and set an appointment? What does that look like?
There is no one correct method. I mean, if it's a personal thing, obviously you don't want to come to a public event and let everybody else in the county know. But again, it's reasonableness. And I think most of us understand what that line is. Now, there's always going to be individuals that socially don't understand that, and that's okay. And we'll work the best we can to help people, make everybody feel like that they are important, because every citizen in the county is important. But it's kind of like this. You have deputies for a reason. You have delegation for a reason. So don't expect the sheriff to show up on a domestic violence call or a collision, because that's what the line deputies do. But if you're getting into other areas that aren't getting resolved, or let's just say it's not even an issue that you're experiencing, but you have a concern. Look, email, phone calls. We're going to make it so that the citizens can freely reach out to us, and we're going to disseminate that information so that the citizens are answered in a timely fashion. And in business, we do it all the time. So it's prioritize and execute.
Got another question if you want to take it. What are your thoughts on civil asset forfeiture?
Oh, I hate it. I absolutely despise it. And the reason I despise it is this was a child of the war on drugs, the failed war on drugs. Anytime we allow a law to violate the Fourth Amendment, to me is a terrible thing. You're granted due process. You're guaranteed due process. So look, we were able to get these civil asset forfeiture buy-ins because we're going after those big, bad Colombian drug lords, Miami Vice days. And a good friend of mine actually worked in Broward County, Florida, at the Broward County Sheriff's Office back in the heyday. And it really was a drug war going on. And we still have drug wars, but in the present state, no asset should ever be taken from an individual without being convicted of a crime. So I absolutely oppose them. In fact, I was noticing I think you might actually have that coincidentally, that Kootenai County Sheriff's page, Bob Norris's resume. And one of the things that he says is that let's see if I can find it here, that he's definitely against, well, you know what, I think you'll find it more on his reelection campaign site, but he says that he's against red flag laws and civil asset forfeiture. I haven't seen him do away with the civil asset forfeiture in the past 4 years. In fact, I've seen it on several of the budgets, and we know that the helicopter program, that, the helicopter that we don't own, but they were allowed by the Board of County Commissioners February of 2023 to take $100,000 of this civil asset forfeiture money to equip a helicopter that we don't own. And after 2 years, I don't know what we're going to do with it. And then do we resell it if we don't continue the program?
Yeah, do they remove it from?
I'm not a fan of civil asset forfeiture. I think it's unconstitutional.
Here's a question that got partially cut off, I think. Can you talk about deputization? Who can, or she probably got cut off or lost signal there. Mm-hmm. Here we go. Can you talk about deputization? Who can or should be deputized? What is happening in Kootenai County?
What is happening in
What
Kootenai
is happening
County?
Related to deputization? Who is, who isn't?
I know where they're going with this. I know where they're going with this. Yeah. Okay. So this is a common discussion we've had. So first of all, remember that your law enforcement professionals today that serve on the roads, whether you're a police officer or a deputy, go through posts, and that's a peace officers and standards and training. And once you graduate from that, you're certified to work for the agencies. So in other words, you go through the academy, you go through all the typical starter pack, if you will, of becoming a law enforcement officer. And these are the professionals that understand how to protect the community, but more specifically, how to protect people and their rights under the law, especially when it relates to the Constitution and to state law. So we want these certified state individuals being there on the front lines, providing the services for the people. Now, there's a couple other deputizations in the state of Idaho, which it's not the same in Washington, where I came from. When I was certified in Washington, you have jurisdiction statewide, so there is no issue. I was based out of Spokane, but I could go over to King County, to Pierce County, and I could actually make an arrest over there too. In Idaho, the way it works is once you go out of your jurisdiction, so if you happen to be city police, technically once you leave the city borders, you're no longer allowed to, conduct your investigation. And so in Idaho, what they've done is they've allowed the county sheriff to go in and cross-deputize multiple different other law enforcement officers so that they can come into different areas of the county and continue their investigation. They're technically not supposed to be going out of their jurisdiction fishing for issues, but let's say that your investigation starts in Spirit Lake and ends up in Post Falls. That would be a legitimate, action of the deputy or the officer in conducting their investigation. There is another type of deputization that's been extremely controversial, and that is the special deputization. Now, special deputization can be given by a sheriff to an individual who does not have law enforcement credentials or background. So these can be individuals that never went through any kind of post training, didn't go through polygraphs or psych evals or any of the above, firearms training, and instead they are given this designation and they're given duties by the sheriff to perform. Some instances this is okay, but in many instances it probably is not, especially if you happen to be a current county commissioner. Special Deputy County Commissioner Bruce Matari, who was Sheriff Bob Norris's campaign manager in 2019-2020. And then as soon as Bob was sworn in 2021, shortly thereafter, he gave Bruce a special deputization. Bruce has admitted that he signed a NDA and cannot disclose information. He does have access, whether he says he does or doesn't, whether he has access to computer programs or not, whatever he wants to say, he still has access to privileged information.
My favorite line in that article is...
We're talking about the Coeur d'Alene Press article where Bob and Bruce are running their mouths freely.
My favorite line is when Bruce Matari says, "It's nothing top secret or anything like that."
Yeah.
So you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, don't worry about it. But, don't worry that you have a sitting county commissioner, the only one of three with a special deputization that has access to information that the rest of you don't have. And look, I've said it before, whether Bryant Bushling agrees with me or not, you're wrong, Bryant. There should be a separation between all the offices. The sheriff should not be deputizing any other elected official. The only individual elected official that can arrest a sheriff is the coroner. So yeah, I think that these pay-to-play deputizations should be scrutinized. That was a tactic that Sheriff Baca and Tanaka used heavily in the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, which Bob Norris was heavily entrenched in the sheriff's office during that time. And we know that that is the most corrupt sheriff's office, or it was at one point in the country. And it's kind of interesting, about the time that Baca and Tanaka left, we see Bob Norris leaving too. But nothing to see there. And, don't look at the $4,000 in donations he received from Tam's Hamburgers out of Los Angeles for a county sheriff's race up in the north side of Idaho in the Panhandle, Kootenai County. Nothing to see there, And oh, by the way, even though Mike Bauer, who sounded the alarm on this when he was running against Bob Norris back in 2020, was kicked to the curb by the clerk and the Secretary of State. Nobody did anything. They didn't want to actually do their job and look into the violations. Mike Bauer was vindicated January of this year when the Los Angeles Times finally broke a story that they'd been working on for years, going all the way back to 2018, where Tam's Burgers, these are hamburger stands, where one of their employees gave $50,000 in donations to various candidates, including Sheriff Villanueva. Now, Villanueva had to plead guilty to 2 misdemeanors for accepting unlawful campaign contributions, but nothing to see there. There's absolutely no correlation between them laundering money for candidates that were friends of the owner, Chris Volvos, who was a special deputy, and Bob Norris. So nothing to see there. Go to the Secretary of State's website, their Sunshine Laws, their campaign portal. Go back to the filings in November of 2020 under Bob Norris. You can see the Tam's Burgers contributions there. And then I want all of you to ask yourselves, why is Bob getting that kind of money randomly from some hamburger stand down in Los Angeles? And let's also look at current day contributions. Now, Bob Norris has a huge war chest. It's about $100,000, give or take. And 10% of that money has come from out of state. And it's come from big donors. Donors like Jason and Shana Vidati. who are cannabis developers out of Arizona and have a summer residence here in Kootenai County. It's not their primary residence. A check of the assessor's office confirms that. But Vedati gave maximum contributions, he and his wife, of $1,000 each, not only to Bob Norris, but to Bruce Matari. No other candidates that I was able to find received any donations. And you have Don Ahern, the billionaire from Las Vegas that owns Extreme Manufacturing and sold Ahern Rentals and owns the Ahern Hotel. Look, there's a reason that Bob Norris is getting a lot of money, a lot of big money from out of state, primarily California and Nevada. And I would guess that Bruce Matari's right up there.
Now, is it not just because he's a heavy hitter, he's well connected, he was so phenomenal at his job at a lucrative department where he's hails from? I mean, does it stand to reason that he's going to get out of state donations just because of his connectedness?
Anything's possible.
He's got friends in high places.
Yeah, anything's possible. But look, for somebody who's so secure in this election, where it's been repeatedly said, Doreen and Kathleen, that Dan Wilson doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell. Well, they're sure raising a lot of money in order to defeat Dan Wilson. And you're calling in a lot of heavy hitters. Now, some of these individuals do have residence in Kootenai County as well. And they happen to be real estate developers. And again, the cannabis industry. And one has to wonder, Bob Norris and Bruce Matari and the Fraternal Order of Police, those individuals that help promote North Idaho Republican candidates, in contrast to the KCRCC picks, well, they're all about responsible, or is it smart growth? We don't know, but it's kind of funny if you surround yourself with donors that are actually in the development business. I don't know. It doesn't sit very well with me. How about you guys?
A loaded question based on the topic. Will you push to help legalize cannabis here?
I will not. Simple.
At the end.
At the end.
The end.
The end.
Period. Point blank.
I will not.
Well, we don't know if Star is offended or if she is happy with your answer.
Well, I can't, I can't worry about if I offend people. You ask.
Do your reasons matter?
No, I don't think my reasons probably are something we'll get into. We'll probably get into it another time. I touched on it not too long ago, but simply, no, I will not be.
She does want to know why that is, but we can always come back to that. Yeah. So what else do you have in that you want to?
So let's talk again about this helicopter. Now,
not the helicopter.
The helicopter, it keeps coming back. We were sold a bill of goods. There is no reason for us to have a helicopter in Kootenai County. Kootenai County is a small county. Now, there is a considerable amount that is on forest and mountainous regions, but we had the full support of the Spokane Sheriff's Office, their air support division. We had a memo of understanding. We paid $10,000 a year, and they provide services for Kootenai County. They have hoist capabilities. We also use Tube Air out of Kalispell, which my understanding was entirely donated. There was no reason for us to bring on a helicopter, but for whatever reason, and eventually we are going to get to the bottom of this volunteer group, this nonprofit 501c3, Kootenai County Regional Air Support Unit, was formed. And at the head of this, the registered agent happens to be Lieutenant Mark Ellis of the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, who is promoting this program to be used by the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. And they use the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office address as the official address for this separate 501c3. Now, there was 5 $100,000 donors. These are community leaders, if you will, that gave, and $200,000 from the tribe. And we were sold that this helicopter was going to be solely paid for by the nonprofit and by generous contributions from the community. A very good friend of mine, Undersheriff of Spokane County, former Undersheriff of Spokane County, actually started the air unit over there. And let me tell you, the cost to run a helicopter program is unbelievably expensive. So we were told that this is going to be a pilot program for 2 years, no cost to Kootenai County, except for, the $100,000 worth of equipment that we're putting on this.
Deputy Northwest wants to know if he can get a ride.
You know what? You will have to contact Kootenai County Regional Air Support. Okay. Now, here's where I'm going to try not to get too far off track. So we were promised that this helicopter was not going to cost us anything. Now, it doesn't have place capabilities. In fact, last week, Shoshone County just to the east of us, had a couple injured ATV riders. And I read in the article, I've put in some information requests, haven't received those yet, but Shoshone County, who is our direct neighbor to the east, contacted Spokane County for their helicopter, and they also used the live flight, and they also used Spokane County, Back County Patrol, so it's their equivalent to search and rescue. Not certain why they didn't use the Kootenai County Regional Air Support Unit since it's right close by, but oh yeah, it needed a hoist, and this aircraft doesn't have a hoist, but we were told you need this for search and rescue and active felonies taking place. So we were told by Bob Norris at a Board of County Commissioners meeting, we'll key up this video in February, that this helicopter was not going to be used for traffic, control, enforcement rather, and it's definitely not going to be used to surveil people. So I'm going to let you guys listen to this couple second clip on the Board of County Commissioners and see what they had to say.
Quite a bit. What I do have concern about, and I would hope that we could address this in the MOU, is traffic enforcement. So I'm not talking about the birds in the air, you got a pursuit. That's totally legitimate, and I would favor that. What I wouldn't favor is enforcing traffic infractions on land or water. So to me, that's not the best use of this resource. So, Sheriff, do you have thoughts on
The
that?
Kootenai County Sheriff's Office is not interested in enforcing any infractions with this tool whatsoever.
Okay.
We agree with your mindset.
Okay.
So we have them right there admitting to the Board of County Commissioners who's saying, hey, what are you going to use this for? And they're saying, hey, we're not going to use this for any traffic enforcement, and we're not going to use it to surveil people. Well, this is what's funny. Now, a week ago, Sunday, so it was around the 9th of June, Donna and I were down next to the boat launch there on the east side of the Coeur d'Alene Resort, right next to the lake there. And as we were sitting enjoying a nice day, we kept hearing a helicopter buzz and finally figured out that it was Able One, the infamous Kootenai County Regional Air Support Unit helicopter, Able One. And it was flying a pretty tight pattern right around where we were. In fact, I'll pull it up and let you look at this pattern that they were flying, and once Donna finds it here. I think what you do is you go, yeah, so you can start hitting right there, replay, hit the replay. Yeah. So you can kind of see it the way the pattern was. It's flying over top of the water. It's flying over top the resort, a little bit into town. So what were they doing? Well, the helicopter was being used to surveil a motorcycle. It was flying a long time. I think from 209 to 351, so almost 2 hours.
Wow.
But what they were doing is there was a motorcycle club or a group of riders that were going to protest the no loud pipes ordinance in Coeur d'Alene. And so, yeah, they were using this to assist them to follow the bikers so that they could stop the bikers and give them a talking to during their, right to protest. So look, Bob Norris says a lot of things. He claims that we're going to use this thing only for active criminal investigations and searching for people, but things always creep, right? He lent the helicopter, and we don't know exactly who all was involved, which Kootenai County deputies, TAC officers were involved in this, but they assisted the FBI in surveilling some individuals down in Clearwater County, 2 counties to the south, for a couple hours back in March. Now, When you go to the Kootenai County Regional Air Support Unit's website, they like to brag about what they're giving back to the community. And they also like to share all of the incident reports that they have for the public to see how this helicopter is being used. If we scroll down a little bit, I want you to look at the dates of these incident reports. So we have one at 6:14 and 6:08. They conveniently left off the surveillance of the bikers on June 9th. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Well, I can tell you from the phone calls and the emails and the direct messages I've received, people are pissed. They are not happy, number one, that helicopter is flying all over the lake where people are trying to, relax and enjoy themselves. But they're also equally not happy that it was used to, in their words, not mine, harass the bikers that were protesting this loud pipe ordinance. So again, you have to look at what really this unit is being used for. As I talked with my counterpart, over in, or I shouldn't say counterpart, my friend over in Spokane who ran the air division over there. Helicopters are very expensive to use. It's not needed here. We already had memos of understanding with Spokane County, Two Bear Air. There's other aircraft assets that could be used. This is nothing more than a bragging right and pay to play again for Bob. Too expensive. It's going to eventually cost the county a lot of money in the event that it goes down. And then look, in LA where Bob came from, it did make sense, especially for pursuits, and the terrain is vastly different. The weather is vastly different there. But this is going to be a very, very costly item if Kootenai County continues to use this aircraft. Inch by inch, eventually, we're going to end up owning this to some degree or not. And we just can't afford it. And I believe it needs to be dead on arrival. And that's exactly what will happen the day that I'm elected. When I'm sworn in, it's done. That program is done. We'll go back to working with other agencies.
Do you ever see a helicopter in the future if it's established differently? As growth does happen, could there ever in the future be a need, and is it something that you'd go about it a different way? I think
drones are in the future for us. I think that there are fixed wing aircraft. In the event that you actually have to hoist somebody out of terrain that you just can't physically get to, there are other assets that we can grab from around the region. But apparently, that's what happened in Shoshone last week with those injured ATV riders. So I think that this is another one of those things that Bob likes to brag, and people think it's cool because, we got this great asset for the county, but if they truly understand the liability, the cost, all the things that are associated with this free helicopter, they would quickly learn that this is a liability that we just cannot afford.
We've got about 10 minutes to the top of the hour. I want to remind you that if you do have questions for Dan or even comments that lead to good discussion, you can put them right in the comment section on whatever platform that you're watching this evening. And we'll fit that in before we wrap it up here. One of the questions is from Star. Thank you for joining us tonight. You may be new and joining us, so we appreciate that. She would love for you to talk about the fentanyl problem that we have here.
That's definitely an issue, and we're seeing it through the multiple seizures that the deputies and police officers are making, not only from Spokane, but all the way to Shoshone off I-90. And it's going to continue. It's not going to stop. My complete attitude on this has changed drastically over the past several years from when I was actually on the street to what I now believe it is. And that is, it is a concerted effort to destroy this country from within. And this is being aided and abetted by the United States government, who refuses, by their constitutional mandate, to secure our borders. They're required to do this under Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution. And I've said this over and over again. If you're new, Donna and I went down to the unsecure Arizona border back in January, and we saw firsthand up close exactly what was going on. And there are sections of the fence that have been taken out that span anywhere from 10 feet to 20, 30 feet. And invaders are pouring across, not being apprehended by Border Patrol or U.S. military, National Guard, and they're running everywhere in this county. Where do you think the fentanyl is coming from? China, who wants to destroy America, has supplied in mass the chemicals needed, the compounds needed for the cartels in Mexico to make the fentanyl. And then they carry this fentanyl over by the invaders. It's transported in numerous ways. And we are not going to rid ourselves of this problem until we can secure our borders. Now, I implore of you, if you have children out there, as tough as this can be, and as young as, you know, they can possibly understand it, you got to start educating your kids about identifying things that they shouldn't be touching, things that they shouldn't be taking from others, things that look like candy. There's way too many people, young kids, that are dying because of the exposure unintentionally. And along with this fentanyl issue, we also cannot forget the human trafficking element that is occurring. And I'm here to tell you that despite what Bob Norris says, even as early as last November, there is most definitely trafficking taking place, human trafficking, right here in our community. And we need to be doing everything we can to combat the invaders, the cartels, the NGOs, all of the above. And we have to have our plan, and we have to get it together now. The county sheriff has to act. The state has not been able to give us the ability and the laws that we need to do an even better job. The federal government is worthless. Mayorkas, look, they're not doing anything but handcuffing all of us at the local level. And so we have to be creative. That's what's required of your law enforcement, is to be creative, to stay within the confines of the law, but to exploit the law every chance that we can in order to protect our borders, our citizens. And remember, every state now is a border state. Even though Idaho is not right on the Mexico line because of the way transportation is by any means, our state is definitely a border state. So hope that answers that.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have a transition prepared. I was monkeying around with this.
Well, look, go to the idahosheriff.com. You can look at our media page. We have videos that we show our trip down to Mexico, so you can see firsthand what's going on. I'm going to remind everyone, Dan Wilson, who's apparently not a good contender, not a serious contender to Bob Norris, back in January actually took the time and paid my own way to go down to see the border up close and personal, and Donna went with me. We saw exactly what was going on. Bob Norris can't be bothered. Now, he made it down to Las Vegas 2 weeks ago.
He did.
So that he could be with one of his big billionaire donors and be in the presence of Trump. And that was where Bruce Matari also went with him, and he was wearing his little special sheriff badge on his lapel, which he won't wear here locally, I might add.
I've never seen it until.
But it's safe where you won't get ridiculed for it. But Bob Norris only calls his special agents in charge. Go to his website, Norris for Sheriff. Go to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office under his bio. He continually brags about the time that he was in charge of federal assets, to include the CIA and the FBI, when he was with JRIC down in Los Angeles. That's at Joint Regional Intelligence Center. And all he ever does is makes phone calls. And maybe because he's on his $180,000 a year disability retirement from Los Angeles, you know, not including his $150,000 he gets as being sheriff of this county. But I guess when you're on full disability, or maybe it's not full disability, we don't know.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money.
A lot of disability.
And he's not 63 years old yet. He's not even retirement age technically. But maybe the restrictions for his disability prohibit him from actually going into the backcountry and getting Western and seeing how things work.
That could be it. Do you have any idea on what your mission statement might be for the office, the sheriff in Kootenai County?
Absolutely. We're not going to reveal it yet. In fact, in addition to, and somebody actually asked that question. I love that question. Love it. In addition to our mission statement, you're going to find out the Wilson Doctrine. So unlike Bob Norris, who does not seem to have really any doctrines or policies, Dan Wilson is fully established in my code, my creed, more specifically for this position, what my doctrine is for the role of the sheriff. And we're going to be sharing this in the months to come. And I think it's important for all of you, as you are looking at the differences between a career law enforcement official, a professional, if you will, and somebody who serves his community in law enforcement capacity at no pay, but also has been a community business leader for 25 years. See what the difference is between somebody who hasn't been on the government tit their entire career, hasn't been dealing with taxpayer dollars, but somebody that's actually had to live out in the real world.
I want to pause on this idea of Dan Wilson having doctrines. And that is because the first time we sat down with one of our team members and you talked about that, my mind was like, because even though as your character, that's not a surprise that you would have a set of doctrines. The reason that it was overwhelming in my mind, it made so much sense. I was like, okay, yes, this is the answer to so many questions that people have when they're insecure about, well, what are your policies going to be as it relates to, a list of very specific subjects?
Yep.
And the reason that this idea of doctrine should be a requirement for anybody sitting in that position of sheriff is that the doctrines never change.
No.
So if you understand the doctrines that an individual holds fast to when they're elected into that position, those doctrines remain steadfast, his beliefs and convictions. It's the policies underneath those that will change or that can be negotiated depending on the day, depending on the need, depending on that specific circumstance, which is why a lot of questions that come in are difficult to answer in theory. But if you're solid, if you're set and you understand what the doctrines of a man are, the doctrines of Dan Wilson, and that those are sturdy, steadfast, and never change, that then is okay. I now can have the peace of mind that this is a person that can run that office because that is something that will never change.
And it's part of casting that vision forward. Men of liberty, for the most part, men and women, are people that have a lot of introspection and they do a lot of thinking. I have contended for my entire adult life. My father started this, with me when I was 4 or 5 years old, that a man has to have a code and he has to have a creed, a set of beliefs that he lives by that govern him and they're the things that guide him when things are chaotic and you don't want to lose sight of what the overall mission is. Look, Dan Wilson can have a lot of good ideas and understanding, but at the end of the day, you have to have people working with you shoulder to shoulder that you can help spread out that extreme ownership in by individuals who buy into the mission and will do whatever it takes to execute that mission. They know how to prioritize and execute. They know how to cover and move. They know how to keep things simple, but they understand that at the end of the day, the mission is always overriding answer to everything. And things change, policies change, things are fluid, but your doctrines never do. And so I want to encourage all of you out there who have never picked yourself a set of rules, your code, your creed to live by, start doing it now. There's so much chaos. We've talked about this 5th generation warfare. I'd encourage you to look that up. It has everything to do with disinformation and propaganda and just chaos. But remember to always stay hopeful. To remain hopeful is what we have to do. And that is why we are a resilient people, because we didn't descend from fearful men. We descended from men who actually were resilient. They were dedicated. They saw the mission and they were unwavering. And that blood courses through so many, if not all of our veins. We just need to harness that. And our founders, our forefathers, pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. And I want all of you to be encouraged despite what we see on the horizon right now. Have hope, be of good courage. Let's make Kootenai County the most secure county in the entire country. We want it to be that shining city on a hill for the rest of the country to see what a liberty without compromise community looks like, where no, we don't all believe exactly the same thing, but we all agree on life, liberty, and property, the laws of nature, and of nature's God. I ask you to join with me in this cause. Come stand shoulder to shoulder with me. If you can, go to my website, theidahosheriff.com. hit the contribution button. If you can give $5, $10, $100, or $1,000, give whatever capacity you can. Sign up for my volunteer posse. We have so many positions that we would love to plug you in. Come to my event on June 22nd. We have numerous private meet and greets coming up, a lot of community events, the 4th of July. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you out there. God bless you all. God bless Kootenai County, and may God bless America. Good night. See you next week.
Well, hold on. There's one more question.
Well, you can't do that to me. I just closed.
No, I can. Have you had a debate with Bob Norris?
Bob Norris refuses to debate Dan Wilson. Bob Norris, I want to debate, and I want to do it post haste. Let's come up with the venue, the moderator, and the rules of engagement. Let's get to town, Bob. It's time for everyone to see the difference between Dan Wilson and Bob Norris.
In the Norris camp, they say the guy in the who has the upper hand doesn't need to debate. That's what Norris's camp, Norris's cronies are spreading. So I think if we come together and start inundating the sheriff's office with calls and emails demanding a debate, the citizens of Kootenai County need this. Got to make them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So wrap it up for us again. I know
You already stole my thunder.
Go to theidahosheriff.com. We are live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. So spread the word.
Spread the word, yes.
And when you do join those live broadcasts, every time get in the habit of hitting the share button on any platform you're watching on so that we can grow the message out to the community and share it with your friends. It's easy to do. And hope to see you this weekend.
God bless y'all. Take care.